All I want to ask you is, did you get your greens today? I got mine.
They really believe this, and when they do their chants, they believe it. What is it about our teachings? And then there's other Nile Valley Africans who may interpret what you just said differently and do something differently in the different shrines.
But let me say to you that there are several shrines in different lineages that do the opening of the way. Okay? So that this has become something that practitioners recognize is helpful, is useful, and they've used it. Now, you've said, here's the fundamental question you're asking. What's the difference between that and just trying to invoke the Holy Ghost in church? One of the fundamental teachings of Kemetic spirituality is that you are a divine force. Now, I would actually argue to you, as someone who has practiced, people don't know that I'm actually, that my degree, my doctorate that I'm working on right now is in interfaith studies. It's not in the Kemetic tradition, right? So I would say that the highest teaching in all of those traditions is that you are divine. And that's, no, they don't believe that.
With the blood of Jesus Christ.
No. Wait. They believe, listen to me, let me finish. Let me finish. They believe that Jesus is a historical person. But in actuality, if you read the text properly, if you read the tradition properly, it should be very clear that Jesus is supposed to be an allegory for humanity. And so I'm arguing to you that the Kemetic tradition, the fundamental principle of Kemetic tradition is that you are divine. And that what you're trying to do is cultivate divine energy to reach your highest self. Not that you're asking for anyone else to give you something entirely. Not that you're begging Jesus for something. Not that you're asking simply for mercy from this outer dwelling being. Because the forces are both indwelling and outdwelling. And so that is what I'm saying. Now, if you're saying that someone feels great when they do their chants, then they do feel great when they do their chants. I'm not saying that people don't feel great when they do their chants. I'm not speaking ill of the Abrahamic tradition so much that I want to say that they shouldn't feel great when they do their chants. I think that to some degree what they've done, though, is they're not even teaching, most of them are not teaching the highest teaching. And that what they've done is they are following the teaching according to the way the European has manipulated it. You've heard me say this, family. They are following the teaching that is most literal. They are following the tradition that is most patriarchal. And those teachings are teachings that that's how the European manipulated it. You have heard me say that if you want to re-mythologize your teaching, re-Africanize your teaching, then we can be in congruence. You've heard me say that. This is what I'm talking about. So that this is not a situation where you are simply begging for something that is outside of you. They actually believe that there's a dude on a cloud floating around waiting to help them. I do not believe that. I do not believe that. I believe that that is an analogy.
Now let me change it. Let me ask. You want to answer that?
No, I'm just, Sonetto, I'm really short to the point, right? I'm not long-winded when it comes to this. So the fact of the matter is that you are misinterpreting what they believe in. Holy Ghost Christians believe that the Holy Spirit enters them, and that helps them and does their work. They're not, and what when people say a Nezarek, mat, a Nezarek, nut, a nuk, mat, right? But no, the Hebrews don't. But we're talking about the wider. But when they do their chants, they believe that they are connected to the. They're connected. They're God's servants. They are working on behalf of God. They feel that energy and that spirit. I'm saying that that the problem with that is what I think that the deeper system of Nile Valley is to describe actually what it is, and we do not need the symbolic ritual. We do not need the symbolic ritual.
Then Reggie, what you've done is you've made yourself the ancestor of ancestors, because what you've essentially done is you've decided that you're going to discard the manner in which your ancestors came into prominence over 3,000 plus years. I do not believe that I have the right to manipulate and to change and to discard the greatest teachings of our ancestors. I do not believe that. But if you're saying that these names, I don't believe in any of the mythos, I don't believe in any of the names, I'm going to describe it just by science, that is not what our ancestors were doing. And so in some ways, what you're doing is different than what our ancestors.
What I am is I'm a Pan-Africanist. But I'm gonna tell you why I'm a Pan-Africanist, and it may be a little bit different, right?
Okay.
I'm a Pan-Africanist because I see all the systems that the Africans are doing, like for example the Yoruba, the people from the Congo, the people from the Nile Valley. All of the systems are very similar, so I don't have to take one or another. I understand what they are doing rather than practicing one particular faith.
But wait. You have to hear this. I do not believe that. I personally believe that the Kemetic tradition speaks to me most fluently, to my soul most fluently. I tend to believe that ancient Kemet is the flower of African civilization. That African civilization was amazing, immense, and did amazing things that we don't even have records for. That's how old it is. But I believe that Kemet is one of the best iterations of Africa. So that's why I'm an African. That's why I'm a Kemite. That's the reason why I practice the way of ancient Kemet. But that doesn't mean that I disrespect the traditions of our African brothers and sisters. No. Wait. Here's what I'm saying. So much of it is similar because that's the way that Africans think. That's the way that Africans think. So yeah, some of the names might be different. By the way, in ancient Kemet, they probably wouldn't even have a problem with you using a different name as long as the principle was still being deliberate and being faithful. I don't even like the word faithful because you're going to misunderstand it. Not you, but people at home. That you're not being in tune with the principle. So that's the reason why even when you look at throughout Kemetic history, you even mentioned this, sometimes the names change because there's some people who are focused on spirit that say, well, maybe this is a better way to describe this for our people. They're still talking about principle.
I understand. I want Sonetta to ask this question because that's important. But I do want to say again that because I see it as science, I know what the people who practice voodoo is doing. I know the people who are practicing Congo, for example, Paulo Kambisi. I know what they're doing. I know what the Nile Valley African is doing, and they're tapping into science, tapping into quantum physics, so I don't need.
But you're saying,
ritual.
but you're saying that you don't need to do what your ancestors did for tens of thousands, possibly longer, of years.
No,
that
many ancestors.
But listen,
We have
yeah,
many ancestors.
no, I agree with that.
So-
But here's the deal: on the African continent, I'm talking about what we did millennia ago. On the African continent, we would not have seen a clear distinction in the way you're describing it between spirituality and science.
I don't agree, but we'll get to that.
But how could you? Well, you have to show me the text that does that. Then you have to support that, because I can support it all day long. I even told you about the Edwin Smith Papyrus that has clearly things that are what we might consider science today, but it intermingles it with spirit because our ancestors did not make those distinctions.
The waters are very muddy, and we'll get to it, because see, at the end, I still want you in 10 minutes and me in 10 minutes to break down our systems that complete our thoughts. That's what I want. All right,
Here's one thing that I heard you say, Brother Reggie, that I want to in some ways agree with, but in other ways not as much disagree with, but tweak a little bit. I have certainly heard some priest use the title Nsut Beat or Nesut Beat, that they are kings.
Yes, they.
I have heard some priests do that. Now, I think that most priests who do it, most high priests that do it, are trying to say that they want to emulate the highest principles for their people. That's why they use it. I've spoken to some of them. I don't do that. And the reason why I don't do it is because I do believe that there are some times that people could misunderstand what I am saying. I am not a king. I don't wield the mechanisms of state. When I have a navy and an army, then I'll change my title. But I mean, I don't wield the mechanisms of state. What I do is I am really focused on spiritual cultivation. So I don't use the title. I don't necessarily disagree with priests all the time that do. But I think that it can be misleading, and I think that it can sometimes lead to people thinking they're saying something that's not founded. I do agree that it can be problematic, and so that's why I don't take the title. Well, I think that there are some that probably have, because we'll see that in any spiritual tradition there are people who have done some things that are not appropriate.
And also, at the end of the day, the usurping of these things actually helped destroy ancient Kemet.
Usurping of which thing?
The usurping of the title of kingship, the aggression to be a king, the mistakes that people make when they have kingships, the priesthood, the priesthood usurping the process. All of this led to the destruction of ancient Kemet.
But I would think that you and I have to disagree with that. I don't think that the model of kingship is what led to Kemet's fall. By the way,
I said the usurping of it. I didn't.
Say but that just means that kingship was weakened sometimes, and when it was weak, other people vied for the crown.
Akhenaten was a strong leader. Akhenaten was a strong.
But his issues were not because of the king. Well, it might be because of the kingship. There's some people who say that he refused to ride out with the army. He refused to do those things that kings do. Akhenaten, in some ways, when he becomes Akhenaten, not when he's Amenhotep IV. When Akhenaten becomes a king, in some ways, he doesn't do the kingly things. He takes a group of his people, his followers, off into another city. He writes hymns and poetry. He doesn't necessarily do those things that are associated with kingship.
No, here's the thing. That's the thing. Actually, Kemet was very, very strong. It was not invaded during that time period. What they did was they let go the Levant. What was happening in Levant? They cared. Yes, they cared. He cared less about that. Because he cared more about He cared more about something internally that was happening. And he took his energy into the eternal matters of the Amun priesthood. Now they hadn't become Amun Ra yet. They were Amun. and they became Amon-Ra, I believe, after this process. That's when they fused the system to make it even stronger.
I don't know if I would,
right?
If I would say
so the Amun priesthood began to become very powerful in the sense of controlling the prayers, controlling the rituals, and they became very wealthy and it became a lot of mismanagement, and there was a lot of problems with that. And it started with his father.
In the Moon priesthood. Can you give me an example?
Amenhotep the Third, his father, was actually the one who began to separate from the Amun craft, the Amun priesthood. He actually he actually had a title of Aten. He actually did, right? The Atenism came in from his father. He married, of course, Queen Tai, that became his great wife.
Well,
right? No, but he brings it in for a particular reason. He makes it more important, right? So so I would have to, and it would be easy to do research to talk about where the Amun priesthood was becoming very problematic. So he let me see. So
but Reggie, I think that most historians would argue that I don't necessarily believe that part of Kemet's fall was because the priesthood became too strong. I don't know if I would agree with that. Now, and I'm not saying I don't agree with it. I'm saying I don't know if I agree with it. We could, and I don't know if we could say corrupt either. I think that you would have to make that argument based on historical text. And so I don't think that you can do that easily. I think that what we have to recognize is one of the things that happens during Akhenaten's time is that he decides that he's no longer going to be interested in those things that kings usually do. And after they lose that area in the Levant, some other things, there's in some ways there's a catastrophic failure that occurs that even leads to perhaps the military conflicts that Ramesses III needs to get involved in. You can draw a straight line you might be able to just draw a straight line between some of the inaction of Akhenaten and the battle with the Sea Peoples in that area. And so in some ways those battles that allow some other groups of people to become more powerful in the region. And as they become more powerful in the region, they're able to contest ancient Kemet. I don't think that we can necessarily say, I don't think that it makes sense to say that this is because the priesthood becomes too powerful, or that they actually get to the point where they're corrupt. I think that, I don't know if you can make an overall argument like that. I don't see that.
I think it's as simple as just Googling the corruption of the priesthood of Amen, right? I think it's easy as that. So I don't think that
argue it in terms of the time frames.
Yeah, we can argue it in the time frame, but I don't think that it is a problem to talk about this. And what I want to do, because that's not what we're here to talk about. That's a smaller matter, but the priesthood became corrupt, right? And I'm not saying what Akhenaten did, right, was correct, because he actually even threw coals on the fire by, in fact, going to their temples and taking off Amun and taking off some of the other.
All of the other.
Many of the other, not all of them, 10. Right? No, the Kemet, he didn't touch some of them. I don't know if he touched Ptah, right? But basically, he began to cherry pick who he thought was important, but bring up Aten. But that itself was a usurp of the throne. That itself was a usurp of the throne.
What he did?
Yes.
Okay.
What he did was that, and then Horemheb was after Akhenaten. Horemheb was pretty vicious in trying to right things. So there was a lot of, and Horemheb wasn't even on the priests. He wasn't even on the line of the kings. He took the kingship.
Well,
and yes,
there was no heir. So
well, he took it. So my whole point of it is,
so someone had
I want to get to. But what I want to get to
But
is
how does this
Yes.
fit into the problem with the priesthood today? That's really what you're saying, I don't think.
the problem to the priesthood today.
Yeah.
The problem, maybe later. The problem with the priesthood today is, first of all, if you're calling yourself a Nosut bit, right, then you're saying that your people have elected you to be king. Now, you can be king of your own shrine, of your own nation. That's what these people are doing. They're becoming Nosut bits of their own small groups. This is not that uncommon because it happened basically in Nubia. After Kemet fell apart,
What happens in Nubia?
that you have
Yeah, I gotta go back to the store. These are crumb stop.
you have in Nubia, when Kemet dies, right, you still have Kemet in Nubia. So you have Dr. Faraji Salim's book on the last pharaoh. You have that, right? That the system of kingship survived even in Nubia, but it was much more smaller, right? So the system survived. My point is that you don't see the problem of of people usurping Nile Valley culture for themselves. You don't see this. You just want to brush it away.
No. I think that no. What I'm debating is whether the problem of Kemet, the downfall of Kemet, was primarily because of the usurpation of the throne. I think that are you actually saying because foreign people are on the throne? Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to understand your argument better, because I think that there are tons of reasons that we could argue that Kemet falls. Now, let's be very clear, and this is for some of the brothers that have been hitting me up on Facebook, sending me texts and everything. Let's be clear. Ancient Kemetic society lasts longer than most in human history. So sometimes people say, well, it fell, so why are you so excited about it? The reality is that it lasts for over 3,000 years. That's a very long time. All civilizations fall. And so we could describe or debate why it fell. There are probably a multiplicity of reasons, and the situation is likely much more complex than some of what we're able to bring forward is today. But I thought you were trying to connect that into some of the errors that we might be making today.
Yes,
that's what I'm trying to understand.
That's why I am exactly.
Okay, so let me understand that, because I'm not sure.
I am. Just be patient, and I'm gonna give, because I'm very short. I don't need a lot of time to do.
I think we went on a long tangent, and that might have been both of us. That's not just.
No, but we are going to end this tangent, right?
Let me hear.
Okay, for example, I'm just ancient Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut was
Hatshepsut.
Yes. However you want to pronounce it.
Okay.
Right. However you want to pronounce it. However I want. You have more authority over it than me. Because I'm just saying. However we want to pronounce it, we know who we're talking about.
Well, the reason why I say Hatshepsut is just because I want the family. I know that we're putting vowels in some places that they don't exist, but I want the family to be able to do research.
That's fine.
So I want to give them the most common African name. Now, if it's not an African name, I just say bump it.
Okay, so it could be if you want to do it could be Emin Hatshepsut. If you want to talk about what her real name is Emin Hatshepsut.
Or Ma'at Kare Hatshepsut.
That's correct.
Yes.
And she is foremost of the ladies.
Yes.
Right? That is what
we're agreeing.
That's okay.
I wasn't correcting you.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I understand. So she was claimed to have usurped the throne. She stayed on the throne too longer, and then her daughter, right? Her consort was Sinemut. And her daughter, I think, was Neferu, and Neferu did not survive.
Right.
She died.
She predeceased her.
She predeceased because of this whole thing that her brother did not want anybody on the throne to contest his son's rulership. So he didn't want Hatshepsut's daughter on the throne. He wanted his son on the throne.
Wait, you're saying that's why Neferu died?
Of course.
Okay.
You think that she was killed?
She was poisoned.
Wait, you gotta prove that to me.
Okay.
I have never seen any proof that. I think that sometimes historians history can be really boring.
Okay, so she is.
And people who are not historians like us don't find this very interesting. So sometimes what they do is they create some drama in it so that a larger number of people are interested. I have not seen any historical or archaeological evidence for poisoning of Neferu.
Weren't killed?
That's not what I said. I'm talking about Neferu.
Was not killed.
We do not have proof that he was killed. There is no proof that Tutankhamen was killed. None whatsoever. Sometimes what people said is that there obviously was a blow. Oh, I don't think that there's any sign that Tutankhamen was killed. I think that sometimes historians, because history can be quite dry, they create drama where drama doesn't exist. And that's often so that a larger population of people become interested in it. But I think that we should be clear that the archaeological record has yet to prove. I'm not saying he wasn't killed. I'm saying to say someone is killed, I mean, that you had better have proof that somebody was killed. Right? Because that's a really serious claim that someone actually took someone's life. We don't have any proof that someone took his life. There was a point where they said, and some of the family at home are going to read this if they're reading something that is a little bit older, they're going to say that there seemed to have been a blow on the back of his head and someone struck him and he died. But more recent studies of his skull have actually proven that what they're seeing on the X-ray scan of his his mummy, is they're probably oils or resins that were used in either the sahuification, the mummification process, or ceremony that collected in the back of his skull. So this happened long after his death for it to get there. So it was not like blood pooling or broken bone or all of that. So we don't have any proof that Tutankhamen was killed. I think that is a dramatic story.
Well, what we do have, you could put the camera on me because you Brother Jabari so photogenic, and you know that's your #1 man right now, Silent.
He was eating a cookie, man.
So I'm gonna say that in
you see him busting your chops a little.
In Hatshepsut, in Tutankhamun, in a few others, you don't have a natural progression of the throne. You have a very, very disruptive process. Akhenaten. And when you have that,
well, not Akhenaten.
Akhenaten
is the son of Amenhotep III.
Right, but after that, right, you seem to have his wife become.
We don't know that for sure. We don't know if Smenkhare is his wife. We don't know that.
We don't know, but we don't know who this character is.
But we don't. But then,
if
we don't know, Reggie, if we don't know who it is, we don't know if that person should have been on the throne or not. You can't say that there's a usurpation of the throne if you don't know who the person is. Maybe Smenkhare is his younger brother.
We don't know, but it wasn't necessary. It wasn't lasting. It wasn't.
Well, the dude died. The person died, dude. We don't know if it might have been Nefertari.
Here's the thing. The thing is, the average life of a Norsut seems to be somewhere, unless they're great, 6 years, 8 years, and they just die.
What? No, you can't make that argument. You cannot make that argument.
In the Middle Kingdom, there was maybe 20, 30 Norsuts on the throne in a small period of time.
But what's your argument, though? Your argument is that that's the average. I think everyone would agree.
My argument is that the society makes decisions. They put people in place to make decisions about who the leadership is. And if they feel for whatever purpose that person is not the right leader, those people don't exist. They go to the next life. Now, let's get
how do you prove that?
We just do. You could just simply do probability. You could just do probability.
No, you cannot assume that someone was killed based on probability.
Here's the thing.
What? So are you hearing this?
No, because we do science. It's science.
No. Listen.
30 people, when you have 30 to 40 people or more on a throne within 6-7 years, and they all seem to die one after another. By natural deaths, they get on the throne and they just die?
But you're making supposition. I'm saying to you that the story of history is for us to follow what the archaeological, what the material culture tells us. And I don't think that you can, I'm not saying that there weren't in Subiti that were killed. I mean, clearly we know Ramesses III was likely killed, right? We believe he was likely killed. And I think that you can make a good argument on that based on the information that we find, based on what they call the harem conspiracy, based on all of that. But I don't think that you can assume...
Harem. How you make it harem? Harem.
By the way, the word harem is not an English word. So I'm saying it the way that they say it in the region. That's just how it is.
In English, we say it as what?
Well, it's not an English word.
But we use English words. Come on, brother.
We call it is actually an Arabic word.
Harem, the people don't know is harem.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'm using a pronunciation that may be less familiar with people.
Exactly.
I hear that. You challenged me because I challenged you on Hafshetsa. That's why you did that.
No.
Because Brother Reggie and I go back and forth, family, and we enjoy sparring. He said it. He smiled because he was like, "Brother, I'm gonna hit you back because you hit me." I get it.
Exactly.
It's fun. It's fun.
Right now, I gotta get it. Come on, man. I'm ready.
No, okay, you got the question, and then what we want to do for the people is we want to break down our system.
He keeps saying that. I have no problem doing that. I have no.
He got you on the systems.
I don't know why.
Reggie got him on the systems.
I'm wearing mud cloth, brother. Come on,
Yeah. Cut that back on.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Give it to me as a gift.
okay, here we go. Let's start the show. How come my aunt is talking about I have not taken, I have not stolen, I have not committed sin? When you look at the Christianity or the Hebrew shit, they saying, thou should not do this, thou should not. Who is they talking to when they say? Because they this dude Taharka is so damn stupid that he's saying, who is they talking to? I have not taken, I have not stolen. Who are they talking to?
To be fair, he got that from Zion Lex.
Right.
And it really doesn't make any sense. And I told Brother Zion that myself. I'm not telling you anything, family, that I haven't said to him.
Right.
And when he sees this video, he's going to have some choice words for me. That's fine. The reality is what he's saying doesn't make sense. He believes it's a third-party contract. That makes no sense. First of all, he needs to understand what first party is, what second party is, what third party is. Just understanding the English language. That doesn't make any sense. He thinks that when he says, I have not, you're telling someone else, and the person that told you not to do it must be the first person. That doesn't make any sense. That's not what first person is. That's not what first person is. And I told him, brother, you can't just violate English and then speak English. Come on now. Now, he believes that if our tradition says, I have not, that there must be something earlier that says, thou shalt not. I don't understand why he would think that. There's no reason for him to think that other than him trying once again to place his tradition as being earlier than Kemet, or saying that there's another tradition that both of our traditions are based on that is earlier than them both. That doesn't make sense. Now, you have to understand that I've told you, family, that the fundamental principle of Kemetic spirituality is that you are divine. So, of course, when you issue your laws, it will say, I have not. Because if you are Makeru, if you are true of voice, if you are that individual that is so without fault that you can enter into the hall of Ma'ati, what some people might call heaven, then you have to say, I have not, because you are responsible. It's not about what someone else is telling you to do. It's about what you do. And that's one of the reasons why I have a really good friend who might even be watching this. I'm not going to say her name. But I have a really good friend who was Christian, who would sit with me regularly when we worked together and say, I don't know if I understand this tradition you believe, Jabari. And because we were good friends, she really wanted to understand. So we sat together for literally 2 or 3 times a week for a year. And at the end of the year, I could see a light bulb went on in her head. She finally understood what I was trying to say. And she said, oh, you know why I couldn't be in your tradition? Because you're too responsible. I have to be able to ask someone for mercy. I have to be able to be the sinner on the cross that says, yeah, I was wrong. Can you hook me up? And that's not how our tradition works. You are judged by your thoughts. You are judged by your deeds. You are judged by your heart. So that if you are doing wrong, you can't just at the end ask for mercy. It does not work like that in our tradition. So of course in our tradition, it would say, I have not. By the way, he also doesn't understand that those 42 laws, the ones that he's reading from, were codified in the New Kingdom. They're based on an understanding of the world that comes much earlier, that we can see in the earlier traditions of the things that you can see in the Mirkuti text. That was the question that he asked.
He doesn't have a tradition of his own.
Woo!
He said, but they don't have a
I want you to hear
tradition
this.
of their own. None of them exist in their time. So if you're talking about Taharka and whatever he believes in, it does not exist at this time. If you're talking about the ancient Hebrews, well, they went into the Nile Valley. They don't have a system. If they want to claim the Hammurabi codes, they can go on and claim it. But once you lift up the sheets, you got a whole lot of midwives there. So you don't want to claim the Hammurabi codes. So these people, none of these people exist at this time. Why are we discussing them? All they're doing is trying to take shots at us. They have no tradition. Put down whatever you're on. Put down your swords. Put down your hats. Join what we're working on. That's what we're saying. Because you don't have it your own. You didn't create it. Your great God sent you into the Nile Valley, all of you, right? For a golden age.
Actually, your great God told you that your land was going to be milk and honey, and you didn't find that. You found famine. And then you came to us, and then we... So let's be clear. Now look, a lot of people are going to be upset about what we just said. And guess what I'm going to say? Guess what I'm going to say, Reggie? So what? You know what I mean? Because if you read the history, you can't debate what we've said. That's a fact.
Right. Now here go a hard question for y'all. Captain Tazariak believes that none of you answered his question. If Ampu is not a real character, why are they thousands of mummified dog heads in dogs' bodies? Why do they have bodies if it wasn't real? Why is the people taking it literal? Because you always say Captain is literal.
He's very literal.
So now, why are the people taking it literal and burying mummified dog heads? I want to know the answer to that too.
I'm going to try to do this as fast as I can, but I want to build a little bit. Let's do this. Tazariak is from New Jersey, and I'm from New York. I'm from the NY. I'm here in Harlem. So if he crosses from New Jersey into New York, he's going to see a large statue of a woman. She's patinaed in green. She's holding a torch.
Harriet Tubman.
No, yeah, well, we're not even going there yet. He's not ready for that. He's not ready for that. Sorry, he's not ready for that. I'm talking about the Statue of Liberty. Now, you might say, yes, but let me say that if he sees that, he might say, well, if they erected this large statue, they must have thought she was real. Are you trying to tell me that the woman that is the Statue of Liberty was a real woman? The question is not about whether she was a real woman. The question, Brother Tazariak, is whether what is real. What is real? Some things that are symbol are more important than things that are physical. Just like you believe the spiritual world has to be more important than the physical world, so then why is it that you can't understand that symbol, sacred symbol, is more important than those things that you would consider real? He thinks that real is just something that is physical. That is not how the world works. And so then you also say, well, then why did they mummify dogs? Why did they sahufy dogs? First of all, you have to understand that there are lots of reasons why animals were sahufied. You're not even ready for that conversation. Some of them are pets. Some of them are pets. And I'm going to tell you that I had a cat that I love very dearly. If I died and my cat died, I probably, and some of y'all going to think I'm crazy. Some of y'all going to think I'm crazy. I'm going to say it because I'm going to be honest. I might have wanted my cat with me in eternity. Because that cat, when I was struggling, when Jabari was hitting rock bottom and had a really tough time in his life, that cat was with me.
I got you. I feel you.
And so for me, that cat is important. His name was, well, I'm not going to tell you his name because y'all going to laugh at me. But listen, in some ways, yes. So some of those sahu were pets. That's different. And some of those animals were food. Because we also believe that your divine force needed sustenance. That was spiritual symbolism. And then there were also times that we mummified animals, sahufied animals, because they were archetypes of a principle. Not because we believe that this dog that we're sahufying is Anpu. Yes, but we thought this is...
in that regard as well.
That's exactly what I'm saying. They were archetypes. They were models. They were symbols of a great symbol. And so that's why we did it, Brother Tazariak. Now, I know you don't understand symbolism because in your tradition, I'm going to get to something that's going to make you sweat. In your tradition, just a few years ago, some of your greatest teachers said that you thought that the end of the world was coming in the year 2000.
No, that was his. Hey, you know what? That's his leader.
So I want to be really clear with you. You are so literal that you thought that the world was going to end in 2000. Some of y'all were preparing for the end of the world. And guess what happened? It didn't happen. Because you have to understand that that story of Armageddon is not literal. The sky is not going to crack open. There are not going to be a multitude of armies that come out of the sky. Listen.
Chariots is going to come down too.
Listen, that is not literal. It's not literal. But obviously you should know that you have folly in literalism, because now some of y'all had egg in your face. You even had to change the name of your organization because your prophecy failed.
Wow.
Because listen, man. Listen. And I'm saying to you that that's because you're literal. Don't you see that there's a problem with being overly literal by now?
Yeah.
After 2000, they should have recognized it, but they didn't. But they didn't understand that. So now don't blame me because I'm not going to be so ridiculous and I'm not going to fall apart on literalism. You should look at me and say, you know what? Maybe I need to be less literal, because I know I bought a bunch of tuna in 1999 thinking the world was going to end. I was prepared for the Tomhu, the European, to be overthrown and for there to be the great black man on the throne. And look at what happened. In 2016, you got Donald Trump. So obviously, your prophecy should not have been viewed literally. Stop being so literal. It's the European that gave that to you. Ancient Africans weren't so literal. You look at the way that ancient Africans look at the world, these are some of the most spiritually symbolic people in the world. The problem that you have is because the Tomhu is now on your soul. The European is control of your spiritual book. That's the problem. You think that you're being a revolutionary black man. Not as long as you're still following the playbook of the European. He got you. He's in control of you. Stop it, and we'll change.
He wants to just add. Okay. So, first of all, they never say what period they're finding these millions of animals. That's so right. The period that they're actually finding it, and they say goes to the pig, the majority of it was the Ptolemy period, where they just went bananas and wild. And these were not Nile Valley Africans. So what they want to do is look at anything Egypt. See, this is low-level scholarship. They want to look at anything Egypt.
It's even hard to call it scholarship.
No, it's not even scholarship. Right? So what they're doing is, for their religion, they're making up things. That's what they're doing, right? And so most of it, it came to a, how can I say, a finale during the Ptolemy period, and this is where this is happening. So this this is not even African. So I'm gonna close the conversation. You can do your research on that. It's a non-issue. It's what you call fake news. All this stuff that they're doing to Kemet is fake news. Anything that the Hebrews say, anything that the Moors say, anything that the Christians say about ancient Kemet is fake news to promote their religion. Now, the problem is they're all busted now because we got great researchers. Brother Jabari is a great researcher. Brother Reggie is a great researcher. Brother Shaka is a great researcher. The Amin Ra squad is great researchers,
and that's
right?
Why they can only come up with faggot stories, Reggie.
I don't even deal with that because their stuff is all on a decline in the last 5 years. Right. And who are the culprits? The culprits are the House of Consciousness, because you can go on those pseudo channels. There's a bunch of pseudo channels you can go to where people are making up stuff, but they're not here, because that's why me and Brother Jabari is talking. We're having a conversation on an agreement or agree to disagree, but we're bringing each other to task. Why? Because, they have been for the last 5-6 years trying to destroy Black News 102, because your news channels are fake news and you get debunked all the time. You can jump up in and say, yeah, we want to debate. We want to debate. You ain't win no debates. Ain't no debate have y'all had with real information have you won. Now, you can get up there and preach. You can get up there and call people names. You can get up there and start fights. But you're not beating us on the information. You're not beating the Amin Ra squad on information. No. And guess what? Brother Jabari has single-handedly cleaned house. So you got a problem in your ranks, and they're all teaming up together. If you notice, they're all on each other's shows, attacking us. They're joining forces against us. But I do want to do, if you permit, I just want us to unpack our systems. Right?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm gonna put on my glasses. You mind?
Why would I mind if you put on your glasses?
I need to put on my glasses. Okay.
That just means you're old.
You get there.
Jabari, you found your glasses?
I'm old too. I'm doing this every time.
You find your glasses?
No.
Okay.
Oh, so you still ain't found the ones you...
I have another pair, you know, and I left them upstairs, so you got me with shades on. But.
Let's go, Reg. Let's get it. 7 o'clock. I gotta be out here by at least 15 minutes.
I only need 10 minutes of it.
It's almost
so
6, right?
we're gonna deal with this. Okay. So, all right. Brother Reggie does not believe that we necessarily need ritual to understand Nile Valley culture and the culture of Africans. But what we really need to know, what we really need to understand, is what is behind the ritual. And the problem is, a lot of people want to put the ritual up front and not tell you what's behind it. One of the most important things is to be able to understand what's going on in Nile Valley culture, you have to read the Medu Neter. If you're not reading the Medu Neter or aspects of the Medu Neter, then you're solely relying on the Europeans to tell the story. That's the first part, because all Medu Neter has writing. Now, what Brother Reggie believes in, right, is science. What do I mean by that? I believe in Hu Sia Heka Ma'at, right? What does that mean? Now, Hu Sia Heka Ma'at is who is divine speech. Sia is divine thought. Heka is divine action. And Ma'at is the field. Now, there's other components of it, and I get this from George G.M. James. Control of thought, control of action, steadfastness of purpose, identity with high ideas, evidence of mission, culture of spiritual order, freedom from resentment, faith in the teacher, faith in your own learning abilities, preparedness for initiation. That is the system that Dr. George G.M. James gave us, Dr. Yosef Ben Jochanan followed, and the rest of the people from that group followed. The problem is that we never coordinated it to actual Nile Valley. So when we look at Hu Sia Heka Ma'at, that is control of control of thought, control of action, and control of thought, control of action. That's Sia. Heka, and to be and then to connect it to Ma'at. So where do we see that in ancient Egypt? We see that on the solar boat. So what I'm getting behind is what's behind the ritual, not the ritual itself. So if you look at the solar boat, here you go, Saab. If you look at the solar boat, you're gonna see Hu Sia and you're gonna see Heka. And Ra represents an aspect of Ma'at. Right? On the other one, on my other photo was another example of it'll take too long. So I'm giving you a methodology. I'm giving you a methodology to approach Nile Valley science and culture without the ritual, but understanding what the Nile Valley Africans were thinking about as far as principle, but being able to apply it and understand. So we have Sia's divine thought, Hu is divine speech, word, Heka is effective action. We have Ma'at. There are other ones that I associate, which is the Jeremiah, the Akul or Seja Ma, and a sword to make up the rest of the 10 virtues. But I'm only going to deal with Sia, Hu, Heka, and Ma'at, because they exist on a solar boat. And you see over here, here's Sia, here's Hu, here's Heka, and here's Ra. Now, why is this important? Well, this is right here, Awef. Here's Ra.
Which version of Ra?
Awef, the corpse, in one of the hours of the night. So inside here is the boat of, here's another version of the boat, and here you have Ma'at, you have Sia, you have the open of the way, the Wawet, you have Awef, and you have over here, you have Hu. The reason why I'm saying this is because I'm approaching it as principles of control your thoughts, control your actions, be steadfast of purpose, identify with high ideas, which is mine. If we can master those things, then we can do science. We don't need the necessary ritual, but our ancient culture supports it. So I'm in support of the ancient culture, but I'm looking deeper at the at what they meant. Now, when I approach Nile Valley, can you see this, sir? When I approach Nile Valley cosmology, I connect it up with modern science. The Kemet cosmology, quantum physics, the Neef cosmology, string theory, the Inu cosmology, classical physics, the Kanun cosmology, human creation, evolution, human evolution, atomism, quantum and atomic theory, the Kepler, abiogenesis, Ptah cosmology, and Memphite, wave theory, and particle theory, the masturbation and spitting in the pathology, DNA and evolution, the coffin text, the paradigm Haru, energy conservation, the atom and the primordial hill, atomic particles and matter, the multiple cosmologies at once, looking at the scientific method of testing, observation, experimentation, Nut in the universe. I'm looking at gravity, dark matter, dark energy, strong forces, weak forces, a Pep and Ra, Ma'at, and Isfet, a Pep and Ra, a Pep and Ra, Ma'at and Isfet. I'm looking at chaos and balance. Ra and atomism, I'm looking at photons, waves, and particles. I am saying that this is what our ancients was doing, and what it is today is in fact this. So understanding this helps us understand this better than understanding the rituals, because during the rituals you still get all of this. Now, the concept of the women as a high principle. All women, major aspects of women have the T in it. This is a concept of quantum entanglement. These are scientific principles, that high principles are related to things. And this T is related to these female principles, which are related to our daily lives. I showed you this before. This concept is a temple. This is Hatshepsut's temple. But basically what it is it's a scientific principle. You're walking into the legs of this woman, and you're walking into her inner chamber, which is her womb, because that's where man is born, that's where knowledge is born, that's what happens. So I'm looking at Nile Valley, the Nile Valley system, and I'm relating it to science. Again, over here you have Nut. Here's Nut swallowing the sun, giving birth to the sun.
By the way, your head is in the way. I need to get that.
Nut swallowing the sun, giving birth to the sun. But this is
Hold on. That is Nut.
Nut.
Swallowing the sun that Jabari done broke down so masterfully, and they still want to know about Gab.
That's right. During different hours of the night, giving birth at the end, they're all waiting for the birth of Ra after he has been successful. But what is this? This is quantum physics. This is dark matter. This is giant particles in space. This is all of this in an allegory. Over here, they want to attack us about the weighing of the feather of truth. Again, this is the afterlife. This happens to be with the soul or aspects of material going into the next form, right? So this scene is talking about energy conservation. That's why you have Ma'at being weighed with the feather of truth. So I'm trying to say is how we can look at science over here, even in our architecture. You see the sun over here. This is telling the time, the hour of the night, of the day. It's also in other forms telling the helical rising. Shout out to Ptah Seeker, right? Dr. Riketti Alman, where you're looking at cycles of calendars. You're looking at the yearly cycle, the Rinpet. What do you call it? You're looking at the Rinpet. But knowing the sun in this position tells you a whole lot of information. That's why they built this architecture. Over here, you have it earlier in the ancient Kemet. You have Nat the Playa looking at the seasons. And earlier in African civilization, you have the Adam's calendar. Adam's calendar is doing the same thing Nat the Playa is doing, but this is in South Africa. My whole point of it is all of this is science, and then you have the different systems. Over here, you have the Adam's calendar, you have Nat the Playa, you have the later pyramids, and then you even have the later model, which is in the Dogon. the doggone period, in the doggone cosmology. My whole point of it is if you read the Kemetic text the way you're supposed to read it, you get science, mathematics, you get evolution, you get all the major sciences all together and connecting it up with what humans do. So a lot of people, they never read Akhenaten's. They talk about Akhenaten's hymn, but they don't see that this is evolution. How many of your deeds do hidden from sight, O unique God, beside from whom there is none? Where they get the one God from. You made the earth as you wished you alone. All peoples, herds, and flocks, all upon earth that walked on legs, all on high that fly on wings. The lands of Kor, Cush, the lands of Egypt. This is where the dispersion of the knowledge. This is the Genesis story. This is talking about human evolution and science. This is just not talking about deities. I wanted to go on. Maybe I got do I got 4 more minutes? 3 more minutes? Right? So then you're looking at all these cosmologies. Cheminal cosmology. You're talking about strong forces and weak forces, dark energy, black matter energy.
Before Dr. Anika coming.
A new they're looking at the a new.
I want to be like, oh, because I know how my white people.
You're looking at the new cosmology. The new cosmology. Ultimately, a tomb is created, but you're looking at physical forces and human forces that make up this universe. So my whole point of it is, if you study his Neith cosmology, Neith, you're looking at string theory. When you're looking at string theory, you're looking at the particle. You're looking at matter. You're looking behind matter, which is the atoms. You're looking at behind the atom, which is the filaments, the quarks, the neutrinos, and that becomes the filament. And then the Neith cosmology is this sister from primordial Africa, where she woos with thread the universe. That's how matter is formed. That's string theory. String theory is in the Neith cosmology. I am saying that mythos, if looked at correctly, you get science. Here, the Cheminal cosmology. Here, this is straight from the text. The first primeval ones, the sons and daughters of Irita, the males and females who created light. This is quantum physics, who were fashioned in Apet and their father Tatanin in the worship of the first moments when light came. The Akdad that gave praise to rays when he illuminated earth for them. The Akdad who swam to their hometown in the islands of flames, who created light from their primeval mound. Matter is created, light is created. Who made their throne, Hermopolis, before their father Shepset. So I can go on. I'm not here to give you all of my work. I am just saying, oh, here's a great one. The Bars of Amun. This is that there are all the systems, they connect all the systems. You are Amun. You are Atum. You're Kepra. You're Ray. You're the sole one who made themselves. These are forces. Amun, Atum, Kepra, Ray are quantum forces. You can look at this in science. So my whole point of it is, why do I need the ritual when, oh, here it is in the Meta Netra. Because we read the Meta Netra. Tuat, Emin, Tuat, Atim, Tuat, Kepri, Tuat, Ray, right? Them dummies, they don't want us to be able to look at this and translate this into a code, right? And this is the sole one that created millions. Hey, and this is Tatanim. Tatanim, who came out in the beginning. So all of this Tatanim right here, Kepra, to exist in the beginning, hot, the foremost. They don't want us to do this because they want to dumb us down. My whole point of it is when we look at the text, when we do the Meta Netra, and I'll stop. When we do the Meta Netra, and we do it properly, what we do is see science. And when I do the science, I don't need to do the ritual, because the ritual is symbolic, and I need to be, as Dr. Ridley says, I need to be systematic. And I don't need to be symbolic. Symbolic, anybody can interpret things. Symptomatic, that's what I really wanted to say. Symptomatic means I understand the connections and what it means. So I will here's the diffusion, where you see the Nile Valley system convert into the Hebrew system. The directly, one-to-one. Nununet is Tehom. Ket is Hosek. Hey, hey, hey. Tuha, Wawuvo. Amun, Amunet. Ra, Elohim. Right? So you see other people's system being born out of our system. So my whole point is, Brother Jabari, the people who are doing the ritual, first, I need to know where the ritual comes from. I need to know the deeper meanings of the rituals. I need to know, and I'm not talking about you, Jabari, because you're my brother, you're on my side. I just don't like the makeup. If I could sit with you, you can do the same thing that I'm doing right now. You understand completely what I'm doing. You may say the ritual still helps. I'm not going to disagree with your practice, but I am disagreeing with a lot of other practices because I see a lot of stuff that can't correlate to science, but correlates to their own selves and their own power, you know, their own personal agendas. I don't see it helping our people. I see it turning the light bulbs on, putting money in certain people's pockets, and ultimately.
I thought you meant the figurative light bulb on top of their head.
No. No.
I'm like, what's wrong with light bulbs coming on?
No. So all we do is we look at the text of Egypt and we look at the text of other lands to see other people's to see the diffusion. That's what this is a lot of what I'm doing here in this paper, and this is a long paper, and I'm on page 58. The reason why I wrote this paper, Brother Jabari, is to say that, and I also want to say, one of our oldest prayers is the Hotep Dinosud. The Hotep Dinosud is probably the oldest prayer, and it's an ancestral worship prayer, right?
That's fair.
And that is connected. That begins to get connected to West Africa. That whole thing of kind of a libation and offerings and stuff like that. However, it still is connected to science. The concept is still connected to science. So I'm gonna stop here.
Yeah, let Jabari get his off.
And
he busting you up on this one, Jabari.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm just saying that.
I know you.
Would you want the ritual or would you want the science?
I'm sorry to touch it, but
No. Listen, if I have invited you here, you can actually see it. No, that's a piece of art.
Oh, because I'm looking.
Okay. Now I wanna really thank my brother Reggie for a spirited presentation. And I wanna honestly say to him that it's not that I disagree with the argument that he's making. He just showed you portions of a nearly 60-page paper he's writing. I want to read the paper. I think the paper would be excellent to submit in scholarly settings to make the arguments he's making. It's not that I disagree with what he's saying. This is where I take issue with it, though. I actually believe that boiling everything down to science doesn't necessarily tell us how to live. It doesn't necessarily give us an understanding. It does tell us more about the nature of the universe. It does tell us more about the nature of humans. What are you? What is the stuff you're made of? How is it created? And that is helpful. But I think that spirituality is not just science. Spirituality also should tell us what to do when you struggle. What do you do when you have a tough day? What do you do when you're struggling with your mate? With your wife, with your husband? What do you do when you're having conflict with your brother? How should you go about your work? At work. Whatever job you do, how should you approach that? I do not believe that science tells us all of that. And so to simply reduce everything to science, I think is to miss some of the story. I do think that ritual is important. I think ritual is critically important because remember, there is more to your psyche, there is more to your mind than the intellectual portion of it. I think that ritual can reach you in a different area. What happens when you have a dream? Don't you recognize that in many ways your dreams are dealing with archetypes? Your dreams are dealing with symbolism? If you are able to deal with sacred symbolism, you can reach the sections of yourself that go beyond your intellectual capacity. Our relationship with people, our work goes beyond our intellectual capacity. We cannot just simply make our spiritual systems an intellectual endeavor. And I want to be very clear that for thousands of years, our African ancestor is engaged in ritual. For me to say that we should discard ritual is for me to say that I understand something better than our ancestors did. And if you're telling me that that people thousands of years ago were able to understand the very nature of the world, then and what they did was ritual, who am I to say now that we should stop doing ritual? I think that doesn't make sense to me. By the way, Brother Reggie sat here wearing a beautiful shirt. In fact, if he falls asleep, he gonna go home with no shirt. Because Brother Jabari gonna steal his shirt. But so he wore that shirt and he wore his hat because part of his preparation for this discussion was ritual. There's a certain way he approaches this kind of dialogue. That in and of itself is ritual. I think that what Brother Reggie has done is he thinks that ritual is what people do when they don't have deeper understanding. And I'm saying to you that ritual is what you do when you want to understand something even deeper than your intellect can understand. And that ritual allow you to reach certain sections of your being that transcend thought. He used the word heka, and he said that was power. That heka was the ability to control the physical world in many ways. But understand that when your ancestors used the word heka, they were talking about words of power. So they believed that they had the ability to alter the physical world through speech. You could describe that as something that is scientific, but I would say to you that in many ways that is a meditation on the ability of utilizing your word in its highest form. That's one of the reasons why you see that when competitors sit with me, I tell them that they can't use vile language. Because I actually believe that our words are power. Our Kemetic ancestors believe that. If they did not, they would not have called their language the Medu Neter, the divine speech or divine words. They would not have called it that if they didn't believe that speaking brought things into existence. And so Reggie would say to you that this is science. I would say, yes, it is science. But I would say to you, it's not just science. And that in many ways, it also addresses the way that we actually commemorate the most important sets of our teaching. So take a look at this image you're seeing on the screen here. You're actually seeing the festival that commemorated the rule of a deity known as Den. He's an early deity. Is it easier for me to sit on this side? Will you see both of us, if the screen and me, if I do this? I'll pull it forward. No, we're good. You're going to need to see both of us, though, in a minute. So what I'm saying to you here is that this is a ceremony. It actually describes how this divine being, the king in this instance, we're all divine beings, but the king in this instance was actually able to conserve his energy so that he can do great things. So Reggie would say to you, this is about energy conservation. And I would say to you, yes, it is about energy conservation, but it's not just about energy conservation. If it was just simply something that we thought of, then why did they actually do a ceremony? The ceremony is important. Reggie has a degree. Did Reggie attend his graduation? I'm assuming he did. Well, guess what? The graduation is a ceremony. It's a ceremony. He didn't make the ceremony. But you intended to.
No, it was off season.
Oh, okay. What I'm saying to you is that ceremony is not unimportant. When we pray before we eat, do you pray before you eat? Probably not. Reggie is part of sort of what we would consider a humanistic tradition of ancient Kemetic philosophy. That's not the tradition I belong to. So I think that when you pray before you eat, you are recognizing that you are taking divine energy in. Ritual can also prevent you from seeing the world in its most mundane form. If you see the world in a mundane form, you're probably going to do mundane things with it. If you see sacredness in the things that you do, if you see sacredness in those things that should be seen as sacred, If you saw sacredness in eating your food, maybe you wouldn't just cram chicken McNuggets and Big Macs down your throat, because you'd recognize that that's not the highest elevation of taking in sustenance. And in some ways, taking in sustenance is taking the power of Ra. Taking the power of Ra is a divine act. Is it science? Yes, it's science, but it's not just science. So that ceremony and ritual helps us focus on what is truly important. That's the reason why we do them. That's the reason why people do things that are of importance. That's the reason why when even brothers on my street are drinking, what's the first thing they do? They pour a little out. They're doing a libation. They're recognizing divine energy around them. Those brothers don't necessarily have to have the highest level of induction into spirit to recognize that that's there. But they're doing that ritual because they understand that there is something greater than the mundane world, greater than just drinking and eating. That spirit is a higher elevation, and that's why they do that. So I want to also show you something here, family. This is a model, and I know Brother Reggie is familiar with it because both Reggie and I do tours of the Metropolitan Museum. I haven't been on his tour. I want to be on his tour because he's going to focus on some things. I'm going to focus on some things. And going on each other's tours will help us get another idea, get another way to look. Oh, yeah, certainly. I do tours in the whole section of the museum sometimes. But anyway, so take a look at this item. This item, you can see it's a bowl, right? And you can see that this bowl has feet. So you might say, well, why would a bowl have feet? Let's go further. Do you notice that the bowl is tilted forward, family? And so the bowl is tilted forward. If you have liquid in a bowl and you tilt it forward and you have feet, which denotes movement, what happens to the liquid in the bowl? It spills. Because this bowl is a wob bowl. What does wob mean? I'm sure some of you at home may not even be familiar with the word, but you know what it means because you're able to see the symbol. It means to purify. And so what we're actually saying is that ceremony, the process of purification, is important. So that ritual and symbol is not unimportant. The names of the Neteru are not unimportant. They're of critical importance. They're of critical importance. And as you focus on the names of the Neteru, you are, yes, focusing on things that we can call science. Your African ancestors did not make a clear distinction between spirituality and science, because science is understanding the nature of things, and believe it or not, so is spirituality. Spirituality is also understanding the nature of things. And so when Reggie says that our traditions can also be described scientifically, he is correct. Because if you focus on the nature of things long enough, you will come up with things that are considered science. But I wouldn't call them quantum physics. Why would I call them quantum physics when your ancient ancestors had another name for it? Use that name. So, but if you use that name, then how can you discard the ritual? Why would you discard the ritual? Why would you discard the names? The names are the description that your ancestors came up with when they were at the forefront of human civilization. Why should I think that I know so much that I can discard the best teachings of our African ancestors? That is the reason why I will fight all day long for the tradition to be practical. That's why. And understand, family, I have a degree from arguably one of the best institutions in the world, from one of the best Western institutions in the world. So it's not that I don't understand science or that I don't appreciate science. When Brother Tazariak and I sat down, I described the nature, the creation of humanity from a genetic level, from a DNA level. So science is important to me. But understanding that doesn't necessarily tell me how I should live. One of the first things that your ancestors wrote when they decided to actually encode, to codify their greatest teaching in book form, in these great rolls of paper, they actually decided to tell us how to live. And if you read those descriptions, it tells us that if you're going to be divine, you have to engage in ritual. When you read the Reyu Pert Emheru and Ger, you are hearing ritual. How do you discard the ritual? When you think about chanting, this is a question that Brother Reggie asked. Well, what about chanting? Why do we do it? Well, for thousands of years, your ancient Kemetic ancestors had a tradition where they actually gave people the title of chantress. Semiyet is the ancient Kemetic term. And I think I used to say Shemiyet because of the way that the S is. Of course he does. Of course he does. It's not just scientific. If they have someone that opens the door to where the divine image is and sings every day, they're not just sitting there giving you equations. The singing has a purpose. Chanting has purpose. There's a long history of chanting in the Kemetic world.
Just like when you see the Indians and they out there and they going through their room.
It has a purpose. It has a purpose. Now take a look at this, for example. This book is a description.
Hold on, Jabari, hold on. They could be chanting in new life coming out the womb.
Sure.
Listen, we had many ceremonies.
Come out the womb without.
Yeah, but they chanting them.
That's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. Brother Reggie just said new life will come out the womb without chanting. You have to understand that science now tells us that, wait. Let me say this, that now there's something called sympathetic healing, which actually means that sometimes you can actually show that when people pray for someone, they actually heal at a higher level than those that don't. But how could you describe prayer as simply science? You're taking the spirituality out of it. You have to pray. You have to pray. Do I teach my initiates to pray? Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. Do we talk about the scientific portions of it? Of course I do.
They don't know that.
But you have to use Brother Reggie, we are all on a journey. We are all on a journey. There's some things that I understand better now in my study than I did earlier. But it doesn't mean that what I did wasn't important. When I sat with Dr. Clark and he gave me some of his greatest wisdom in a private setting, I would bring it up to Cornell. One of the reasons why some of my Cornell students that were with me at that time will be upset. I was the head of the Black Student Union then. Black Students United. And what I would do is I would have Black Students United bring him up. But guess who he would want to sit in the room by himself with? He would sit with me. I remember us sitting in the room of our RHD, Brother Ken Glover, who was one of my mentors and someone that's really important to me. And he would sit there. One time he sat and spoke for 5 hours nonstop. It was just me and him. And I sat at his feet and I wrote. That night my hand was sore. I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I said to you that what I wrote doesn't make much sense today because I didn't have enough knowledge. Does that mean that I should not have done that with him? That was a stage that I had to go through. That's also why when you go through initiation, you go through stages. You go through stages. By the way, the first stage was earth. The second stage was water. Some people who think that they have actually arrived in the Christian tradition get baptized. That's only the second stage of your initiation, according to the ancient traditions. So there's much more you need to learn. Let me show you something that comes out of this book by Dieter Kurth. It actually is a translation of the glyphs in the Temple of Edfu. And as we look at this here, let me just read to you what he says to some degree. He says, the priests had to be pure when they performed their duties. Purification consists partially of washing thoroughly, chewing natron salt, shaving the hair, donning white garments, but external purity was not enough. And the priest also obliged to demonstrate pure behavior, including the avoidance of impure food and at least temporary sexual abstinence. So that the priest in ancient Kemet, by the way, this concept that priests should never engage in sex was not something we did in Kemet. It was just temporary sexual abstinence, because I could argue that what they were doing is they were galvanizing sexual energy. Sexual energy is procreative energy, and that energy to produce is important. So that is not strictly science. We're talking about internal purification, and internal purification has to do with what you do with your thoughts, how you pray to engage sacred thoughts. It might also mean burning incense. Burning incense allows you. We said this was the smell of the inter. By the way, some of our greatest rulers sent expeditions into their homeland, into that area that sometimes is called Put, sometimes that's called Puanit. And when they did that, one of our greatest rulers actually sent someone in and brought back one of the oldest people because he said that that person understood the dance. Y'all gonna just do all this while I'm still talking? What's going on here?
I gotta go.
The dance of the divine. And so now you let him go. Now you gotta go let me. Now what you supposed to say? Is he like you better than he likes me? Is that what's going on here?
Come on, I gotta.
I hear what you're saying. Family, all I'm trying to say to you is, yes, we could describe our tradition according to science, but it's not just science. So when people are working with Jabari Osaze, we talk about how to develop good character. We talk about how to purify oneself, and some of that is with diet. Reggie does not want to hear that because he gets very upset when we talk about diet. But some of that is purification according to diet, because there's certain things. I showed you that the priests were doing it.
Science.
There's certain things that you do in order to purify yourself. There's a certain way you think. I don't know how you could call that all science. Does science explain to you how you should behave with your wife?
Yes.
What science is that?
Science of sex.
Come on, man. He's saying that the relationship with his wife is just a sexual relationship.
No, but it's all encompassing.
Brother Reggie, no. If you listen, all I'm going to say to you is this. I didn't even go into what I teach as much, and I wish I could. We're short on time. I wish I could. I hope you understand the principles by which I go into what I teach. I hope you understand that. My initiates go through, every week we have a different topic. We call them the Sebketiyu, the gates.
Yes.
And you go through the gates each time. They build on each other. And at the end, you should have a fundamental understanding of Kemetic history, some of Kemetic language, because we do teach some Kemetic language even in our initial initiation, and even how to purify oneself, how to do altar work, how to think of, how to focus on divine energy so that you can be your highest self. That is what spirituality is. And that is truly what I attempt to do.
Well, we'll talk again.
We have to.
And we'll talk again. It's a pleasure talking to you in your beautiful home and your beautiful space. And we have another conversation.
Listen, I really enjoyed talking to Reggie, so I'm pleased that we got a chance to talk about some of this. We don't agree on everything, family. We don't. And we're gonna argue vehemently behind this. But the difference between some of the people that you've seen on this network and me is that I'm a practitioner. And so we're going to not always agree on everything. But I'm going to tell you something very clearly. We certainly agree on the place and position of Kemet in the historical world.
Yeah, we do.
We agree with that 129%, if I can do a non-scientific equation. So that those people who are sitting here and thinking that they're going to find space between us, if you're talking about history, we're going to beat you up together all day long.
Yeah, this is an internal
So come to that.
our community.
That's right.
Differences.
That's right.
And I respect that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an internal conversation about internal differences, but I respect you.
And I respect you too, deeply. You know I respect you. Listen, we have respected each other for many years, and so I want to thank Brother Sonetta for once again allowing us to engage in this conversation, because you have to ask yourself, family, where else or when else have you seen this dialogue? The only time you see this dialogue is when you're sitting with people who have been studying for a long time. Some people have not had access to people who have been doing that. This is important. And that's why you have to support the work that he's doing. Some of y'all in different camps don't necessarily like all that Sonetta does. But you better recognize that this kind of dialogue doesn't happen anywhere else. And so you better support Black News 102. You better support Brother Sonetta, because the reality is our community has to discuss these important issues in order to be powerful.
We got the real black news. Y'all got the fake news. Tune into Black News 102, Sonetta TV. Black Power.
And I'm going to say, Shemim Matep, go forth in peace. Because you know, I'm going to be in Kemet from the 1st to the 10th. I'm not going to miss the Unity, our Unity conference on the 13th. I'm not going to miss it. And so you better believe it's important, and you better be there too. Peace.
on August 13th, 2017. All roads lead to the reunion.
I love it. This is what's happening. It's the House of Consciousness reunion celebration coming August the 13th.
Hey man, this your Captain Tazaria, Kavaya Shibike, and the Commander Jenny Hunter, man. August 13th at the Alhambra Ballroom right here in Harlem, man. They're having a conscious community reunion. A lot of brothers gonna come in the building. I'll be in the building as well. A lot of sisters gonna be in the building, man. It's gonna be a great event. Brothers coming from all across the country, all across the world to this event. So y'all should come out there, man, because we're gonna present actual solutions. Now, I can't speak for everybody else.
Reunion celebration, August 13th, 2017. Unity.
That's why I want to call this the family reunion. Right. We got everybody coming down August 13th, 2017.
The House of Consciousness reunion celebration, August 13th, 2017.
August the 13th, I want you to be in the house.
Come on out, August 13th, the House of Consciousness family reunion.
If you're not in New York, August 13th at the Alhambra, right?
Yep.
For the HOK reunion, you are not where it's at. It's
August 13th, the HOK reunion, House of Consciousness reunion.
Have your ass in the building. This is going to be powerful. And you know what I'm coming to do. I'm coming to bring that work. I'll see you there.
Be in the building August 13th, House of Consciousness United.
I'm not just invited, I'm confirmed. I'm going to be there on August 13th.
August 13th, it's going to be live.
August 13th, it is going down, family. It is a long overdue, but yet critically right on time event that we're having.
August 13th, 2017 at the Alhambra Ballroom.
Yeah, August 13th, I'll be in the building.